Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners work session for Monday, April 17th, 2023. At this time, I will do roll call to ensure we have a quorum to conduct business. I'll start with District 2 Commissioner Kelly Robinson.
Present, Madam Vice Chair.
District 4 Commissioner Mark Alcaraz.
Present.
And I'm your District 3 Commissioner and Vice Chair. We do have a quorum. We will call the meeting to order. Board of Commissioners, you've had a chance to look at the work session agenda. Are there any additions or updates to the agenda for today? Being none, can we, Commissioner Robinson?
Madam Vice Chair, were there any amendments to the agenda over the weekend, or was it as what we had on as of Friday?
Clerk Watson, are there any amendments to the agenda before us?
No, ma'am. I did add a couple of documents to your packet since then, but there are no amendments to the actual agenda.
No amendments to the agenda. Can we adopt it by common consent?
Concur.
Good.
Wonderful. The agenda has been adopted for today's work session. Clerk Watson, do we have any public comment?
Yes, ma'am. We did have one citizen sign in, but before I call their name, I just want to go over the rules for citizen comment. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address the board. A 15-second warning will sound at the time, and at that time you will have 15 seconds to complete your sentence. Once you state your name and address, your subject matter, your time will begin. So we have Ms. Sharon Bachtel this morning.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a few topics this morning. First, I would like to talk about the election department closing on Tuesday, April 4th, the day that Trump was arrested. According to the election office, they closed out of an abundance of caution for the safety of the employees. The only notice to the public of the closing was a sign on the courthouse door. Thousands of our tax dollars are used for a communication department to inform the public, and the only notice they can give us is a sign on a door. The courthouse was open that day. Sheriff deputies search everyone who enters the courthouse. Why was the election department in more danger than the rest of the offices in the same building? An election office employee stated that there was no direct threat to the department. According to Section 2-6 of Muni Code from your website, all administrative services shall be open between the hours of 8 and 5 p.m. on weekdays, except as otherwise directed by the Board of Commissioners. There's no record of the BOC approving the closing of the election office on that day. No other election office in the state of Georgia closed that day. It is my opinion that this was a political stunt by the election director. If Mr. Kidd wants to play politics, he should resign and run for office. If Mr. Kidd is too afraid to do his job, he should resign and look elsewhere for work. Douglas County needs an election director who is fair, dependable, and trustworthy to the citizens, so the citizens will have faith in the integrity of our elections. My second topic is a new job for a part-time legislative aide to serve at the pleasure of Commissioner Robinson, which is being advertised on your website. More than a year ago, the BOC voted to make the legislative aide job full-time with benefits. This new position is part-time with no benefits. Why do the taxpayers have to pay for so many aides? You only budgeted for 3 positions. Are we paying for Commissioner Mitchell's aide, who is sitting idle? Are we paying for Commissioner Robinson's regular aide, who is on administrative leave? Where is the money coming from for this job? According to Section 13-29 of Moody Code, the BOC has to approve new positions. Did the board vote on this new position? How can Human Resources advertise a job that it has not been approved? Proper procedure was not followed by 2 of your departments. What are the consequences when directors violate ordinances? And last, at a recent town hall, Commissioner Carthen promised that the residents living close to Punkintown Park would be notified before the jackhammering started. That did not happen. So much for promises. And I would also like to say, those who cover up harassment are just as guilty as the harasser, because the harasser will keep on harassing And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Clerk Watson, anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. We will now follow the agenda as presented. Presentations, 2016 SPOS update, Debbie Good or Terry Gable.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I'll just take a second to pull this up. And what I'll be giving is the overview from February's revenue and work through March of this year. And just as a note, the current SPOS ended on March 31st, which was just a few days ago. And then we'll be giving a report on the March revenues that came in next month, as we are a month behind on each one. And so what's going on this time is that we're going to have talking about completed projects. We're talking about activities for the 32% that comes out by our EMS, the 51% that comes out transportation, and then the final 17% that comes out Parks and Rec. And then we'll be giving our bi-monthly vendor report. First of all, we know that the financials continue to remain strong. We end up coming in a little bit over $2.7 million. Our original projection is almost 2.1. From April revenue, which was starting in 2017, all the way to the end of February, the revenues that came in was $172,284,16, and that's about 18.6% above the original projection. The amount that actually came in just for the county is between 119 and 120 million. This is actually a overlay of how we've been collecting throughout the whole year, which is basically from March of last year until February of this year, and we're averaging about $3 million. I'm a little bit over $3 million, and the green line is showing the projections, which is around almost 2.1. Our completed projects, one of them is the BOC fencing and dugout, as well as the retaining wall at BOC. The other one is the Fair Play one. Same thing with the fence and dugout. That came in at a cost of $1.56 million, and it was completed in March. This is a design of the BOC. As you'll see how the old wall was, and you see the new wall right next to it where it has the blue and the new fencing. Same thing for Fair Play. You'll see the difference between the fencing and the dugout is basically on the left, and then the new fencing and dugout is on the right. And it's a very nice addition to both District 3 and to District 4, and to the county at large. Also, we have a completed project up there at Chestnut Log. We have netting for the soccer field as well as new fencing. The netting is actually going to be paid by Douglas County Schools, and it was a cost of $64,910, and it has been completed. And this is the design of it. Again, you see one side on the left and on the right, so that's the completed fencing out there, and that was one of the big things that the community did talk about, having that netting completed over there. And these are the activities. Again, we have starting in fire. You have fire station number 11. It was advertised a couple of days ago, and the bids are due on May 8th. Now, we also have the resurfacing for 2022. It was at a total of $9.8 million. The SPLOS part of it is $5.7 million. C.W. Matthews has completed resurfacing as of the 24th. We're just doing final striping and the final invoicing. That's all that's left. So next month, we should be showing that one as a completed project. Stewart Mill Road, most of the residents have actually seen on the Douglas County's website, showing the detours and showing that that project is ongoing. We're about 28% complete with that project. And right now, they're just doing the detour, doing some of the drainage work, and it's supposed to be completed in October of this year. Now we're going to go into the vendor report. Right now we have 170 vendors. 62 of them are located right here in Douglas County. Another 56 are within 30 miles of Douglas County. And a lot of those businesses actually belong to our Chamber of Commerce. The other 52 are either outside of Douglas County's 30 miles or in another state. We have 104 total projects that they worked on. 30 of those are active, the other 74 are completed. Right now, that is showing a 70% here in Douglas County or in the surrounding areas that are actually being able to, getting projects here with the local SPLOST. I mean, we do a lot of that through our business engagements. And we also, this is the amount of money that for Douglas County. We actually had a resident at one time that asked how much is coming into Douglas County. So at least I want to report on that figure first. That's at $13,197,851.77. And then those other vendors that we also consider local are those who actually touch our borders. And they're at almost at $58 million. And the local represents 67% of the total amount of SPLOST funds that's been expended. And finally, we were tasked to keep track of DBE, minority participation, on active projects. Of those active projects, that's 30 active projects, and we have vendors report of 77% when it comes to DBE or minority participation. And with that, Madam Vice Chair, I yield, and Terry Gable is here from Atlas to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the presentation. Are there any questions regarding the SPLOST 2016 update? Commissioner Robinson.
Monday morning. Good morning. All right, let's get to work. All right, a couple of questions. So the SPLOST 2016 is over. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Right, that means we're no longer collecting revenue on that SPLOST. Just yes or no?
Yes.
All right, but the new SPLOST has kicked in. Have we begun to collect revenue on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. My third question is that, are we reconciling the two from a financial perspective? In other words, we've now subdivided them. You know, that penny is over, 16. We got a new bucket of money for new revenue. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we're parking that for right now. So it's a pay-as-we-go. We have not initiated any bond or anything like that against this, yes or no?
No, sir. We have not issued any bonds for the new SPLOST.
I'm going fast. My next question becomes, I understand the marketplace. I understand why we would pause right now for the broader, obviously financial. But have we finalized the list of initiatives in the 4 buckets that we, this board, the 2022 SPLOST? Have we finalized the 4 buckets?
Not to my knowledge. I know 2 of them have been finalized based upon meetings, but the other 2, I do not believe so.
See, what's important is continuity. You guys have done an excellent job over the past, 6 years, 5 years, and keeping us abreast on a monthly basis on where the taxpayer dollars were going. We're talking about big buckets, right? Big buckets of money. And we've accounted for it. Now that list, again, you're going to finish it out probably over the next year or so. And I'm hopefully that maybe a better question is, will you give us a final findings, I guess, next month, where everything went for the 2016 SPLOST?
Yes, we'll give that to you, showing it as a financial view, and then showing those projects that have been approved, that have either been encumbered or that we know that's on the list that will get completed by the 2016 SPLOST. You will have that next month.
Right. We talk about transparency. It's one thing to talk about and say it in sound bites. It's another to actually show it to the public. Like, I'm gonna break this thing down for you. All right. So I want you to that point, I want you to show a single view. I'm looking for 2009 SPLOST and the 2016 SPLOST. I want them to overlay on top of each other and show how the revenues and expenses came in. I want to show, from an education perspective, how to look at this and what was actually got accomplished doing those tax dollars. We love talking about where our tax dollars went. We're going to show you. Can you make sure that happens? Can you work with our CFO and make sure that happens, Mr.
Yes,
Good?
sir.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Do you understand what I'm asking for?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the public? So this is important. This is for the public, not for my sake. I know what it would come out. So my last question, again, back to the 4 buckets. At some point, we will reconcile it. But here's my point. We're collecting tax dollars. And we ain't got a list to apply it against. Why are we collecting tax dollars? Or what is the plan, since it's already been approved? Listen to my words. What is the plan? So if we're on a pay-go system, I get we're just stacking up the treasury. We're stacking the treasury. I get it. And we don't want to go get a bond. I get it. What are we doing with this money as we're collecting it? All right, so in other words, well, there's a new set of projects, either the overlap from 2016, what didn't make the list, what ain't gonna make it, Now that rolls over to the new one. So I'm looking for that reconciliation conversation. Reconcile. It's been cut off. All right, so now you got a new list. Stuff that didn't get finished in 2016. It's okay. And then it's new stuff. The list was long anyway.
All right.
Please reconcile. I'm just talking out loud for the record. You don't respond. So I want that reconciled, rolled over. Yes, it was added to the list. It wasn't guaranteed. I don't want to hear a narrative that, well, why this is like, stop it. I need y'all to stay focused. We had a list that was long. You had a certain amount of money. When we got that done, what's left over, please roll that to the next list. We need to talk to the public. We can't okey-doke the public by this sleight of hand and what's like, lock the list. This is the new list. When the money starts being applied, this is the list. We've had committees. We weighed in. I mean, somebody needs to sit there and call it. This is the list. This ain't hard. This shouldn't even be political. It's a need. So just pick it. The priority is simply that. But I'm teeing you up while we're in this period of, this period. Hint. You still need to get work done. We still need to get this. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, I understand life happens, but this is important. So can you please reconcile the 16 to the 9, and then also reconcile the 2022 to the 16? I think you know what I'm asking for. I just did this for the record. I've already, Madam Vice Chair, I already talked to staff already. This was for the record, so they know what I'm asking for. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. I yield the floor, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, Mr. Good, in regards to the Stewart Mill Road construction, can you give us an update on when that project is to be completed, where they are, and is there anything that we may need to be aware of in terms of the cost of this project?
Well, and also Terry Gay was here to answer anything that we could add on to it.
Okay.
But it's due to be completed in October of this year.
October
Yes,
of
ma'am.
2023?
Yes.
Okay.
And then right now, we're around 28 to 30% completed. And anything, I believe there's 2 items on this list, one for the design and one for the construction that Director Suleiman will come up and explain as well.
Okay.
But if there's anything else that Terry Gay would like to ask, he could come up if he likes to.
The project, and Suleiman can correct me, I think it was around 2.1 million for total cost. We've had a few change orders, but they've been small, fortunately. It's on track, and David mentioned October, so that's what we're hoping.
We're
to meet.
aiming for.
Mhm.
Okay.
No
All right.
addition.
No addition. Thank you for that. And the resurfacing, you said we only need final striping, so when will that be completed?
I can get a date for you on that,
Okay.
but all the resurfacing was completed.
Was
in
completed.
March, so, but I'll get a date. I'm still looking for the last invoice from them. But that's the last thing is finalized, the final striping. They have temporary striping on them, but they got to do final striping on some of the roads.
Okay, great. And Fire Station number 11, site improvements. Can you talk to me about that one? I know the advertisement for it has gone out. The bids are due back May 8th, $500,000. Will we be able to stay within that? Are you anticipating that?
So the scope of it, if you're familiar with the scope,
Yeah.
it's just site work. It's redoing that back parking lot, completely changing out the sewer system on it, hooking up to WSA's sewer system. Good project. It's been delayed for quite a while just with permits. But as far as the budget goes, yes, we're good. We can handle that within the scope of the project. Now, what we're obviously looking very closely at will be the bids when they come in. And they have gone up a little bit since our last estimate, which was just under 500. So I'm hoping we're going to be, very close to that number.
Okay, so this is one of those projects, and kind of in relation to what Commissioner Robinson was saying, is we do have to reconcile, right? What will be brought over to the 2023 project, because we've started something, and what we can actually close out on the 2022 SPOS list. So it is really important that we reconcile it and make sure that our dollars and cents add up so that we'll know concisely what we're doing for 2023 SPOS projects, so.
And we're tracking right now. We've got programmed about 122 million versus the 106 that we originally
Right.
originally projected.
Right.
So we're on track for that. We're at like 119.5.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll hit right around 3 or a little, somewhere between 2.5 and 3.
And 3.
We'll be real close.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next agenda item is the bidirectional amplifier presentation, and that will be done by Director Harley.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair,
Good
Board of
morning.
Commissioners. And citizens of Douglas County. This morning I have with me Andy Peach, who is our radio systems administrator. We wanted to bring a bidirectional amplifier presentation before this Board of Commission today, as we are receiving what is referred to as BDA requests from different construction entities within the county. So we have a lot of construction going on currently in the county, and so they are requesting these bidirectional amplifiers. And so we wanted to just come to you and to explain what those are and why they are being requested and what is required as part of that request. So first we'll start with what is a BDA. It's an amplifier which amplifies radio frequency signals in 2 directions simultaneously. BDAs improve in-building coverage for radio communications and cellular signals. For the purpose of this conversation, it is for radio communications. So BDAs metaphorically are kind of like Wi-Fi extenders in your home, except they are for radio communications, and those communications in buildings where the ability to communicate might be compromised, such as in stairwells, basements, for our public safety responders if they need to respond for an emergency to a building. And so these BDAs are requested because of several code requirements, and those are fire code requirements in order for those buildings to pass fire inspection. And so it's the NFPA 1221 section 9.6 and NFPA 72 section 24.5.2, and they dictate that radio coverage shall be provided with 99% floor area coverage in critical areas and 90% floor area radio coverage in general building areas. And then the International Fire Code section 510 dictates that all new and existing buildings shall have approved radio coverage for emergency responders based upon the existing coverage levels. And so this is just a graph of what this looks like. Andy, do you want to explain the graph? Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So a BDA has 3 components. Has a donor antenna pointing to the closest radio site in the public safety radio system. It's got multiple antennas within inside of the building. And it has the main component, it's basically how it gets installed. As you see on this image, you see the fire truck outside and you see a firefighter inside. The coverage for the radio outside, for the fire truck outside, cannot interfere with the BDA system inside of the building. However, the firefighter or the police officer or any kind of boots on the ground inside of the building cannot interfere with anything outside. So technically what we're talking about is the BDAs have to be installed properly within guidelines. Think of a BDA and the booster as this microphone. If I talk really, really loud, it overdrives the radio site. And if you put this microphone close to a speaker, it becomes a feedback. So technically, the BDA has to be installed within those NFPA and IFC standards.
So what happens when we have new construction? So the contractor must reach out to Douglas County first to advise the location and the identity of those areas that need signal enhancements. And then the contractor must coordinate with Cobb County because we are on Douglas County is on Cobb County's radio core to meet with their radio systems, regional radio systems administrator to have diversified communications, which is who Cobb County uses to survey the location and to start to perform tests. All BDA testing must be coordinated with Cobb County, with their dedicated radio shop representative for any core testing and BDA surveys. Diversified Communications will then submit a detailed report to Douglas County of all testing. Douglas County will then authorize the contractor with a specific detailed authorized document allowing the owner to retransmit frequencies coming from the channelized BDA to the closest radio site. This document, Andy actually drafted a document, and it is currently in county legal, includes Douglas County, the city of Douglasville, and will require us to actually grant that permission. And the reason why that it includes both government entities is because in Douglas County, we have 10 radio pairs, radio frequency pairs. 8 of those radio frequency pairs belong to the city of Douglasville and 2 belong to Douglas County. And so it will require both entities to grant that permission. And so this is what a testing sample looks like. As you can see, you see all green in that middle document. That means that everywhere in that particular building passed with regards to not needing a BDA. And this is what it looks like when there's a failing sample. So that means that there are areas within that building where radio communications, where there's some level of interference so that our public safety responders would not be able to talk within that building. And so this is what it looks like when there are particular areas that fail, which would mean that a BDA would need to be installed within that building. And that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Harley. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the presentation. Are there any questions regarding this BDA request? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. No, I appreciate what I was listening to. So there's an actual ask, yes or no? Is there action that's going to be needed by the board?
There will be some action. Once the document that our radio systems administrator created goes through our legal processes, the ask will be for the board to sign each BDA request. Currently, we have 5 within the county regarding the new construction in the county, 5 different business entities in the county.
Got it. So,
5.
go, yeah. Were you going to say something?
5.
5.
It's 5.
All right, so we've got
Confirming that
5
number.
that are in queue. We anticipate more. So this is not a retrofit. This is only for new construction, correct?
Yes.
All right, new construction only, going forward, and this is, but you need both the city and the county simultaneously. So if we ever have conflict, I mean, how y'all gonna reconcile this?
Well, the document will be a standard document, and basically what the document does is it compels those business owners to ensure that there's yearly preventative maintenance on a BDA if they install one, that it's engineered, that it's secured, and that it meets the standards of the NFPA and IFC. And it also, the document compels those business owners for enforcement. So if a BDA begins to interfere with our public safety radio system, it allows us to be able to go in and remove it.
Got it. All right, so I think I got it. So this is non-residential. Let me clarify, right? Non-residential.
Commercial, yes.
Non-residential, that means it's commercial. Non-residential, so this is commercial or business, as you say. I just want to clarify the words. So, and what size is required? So is this the little small 2,500 square foot hairdresser salon, or is there a size in which this is required?
Typically, it's larger buildings, such as apartment complexes that may have basements, may have parking garages, and just those areas that are areas where radio coverage might be compromised, and larger facilities, so typically larger businesses and buildings.
Is that the square footage, is it specified in this, whatever, this code modification or adjustment? I mean, is it somewhere in this master agreement, this is there? Because, I mean, what are you saying, we may have, what, 10 to 20 of these a year? I'm just trying to understand what we're looking at. Is there a volume issue here?
No volume issue. We actually received the request from the building. So once the fire inspector goes out and they determine that BDA testing is needed, then we receive that request. Andy receives that request as our radio systems administrator. He then connects that business entity with Cobb County so that they can actually begin the testing.
Okay.
And so it's kind of what we receive. I don't believe that there's any specific, no.
Depending on how the construction
It's
is.
depending on what the construction actually entails and what the construction involves.
So this is not covered in the design, so let me get this right. So we got to be far enough along for us to be in construction whereby the fire inspector says, well, you know what? Y'all actually may need this. So now they got to go back and retro, I mean, talk me through this. This is not caught on the front end of, like, it's just like thou shalt. So shouldn't that be in the technical design specs before you even get to construction? How does that work? Because then it's after the fact.
So the BDA testing, it does take some time, actually, and it's during the construction phase. And so they don't actually know until a building is being constructed whether or not there are blind spots with regards to whether or not the radio system is being interfered with. And so the testing itself, we have one now that is complete, and the testing was about 5 to 6 months. So they would go in and test each floor. It's an apartment complex, an apartment building. And so they would go in and test each floor, and then when one floor would fail, then that would mean that there will be a BDA that was needed in order for the radio system to be able to function.
I mean, that was good enough. I'll take the rest of my questions offline. Madam Vice Chair, I yield the floor.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Alcaraz?
Who's going to be doing the testing you said it was going to be done yearly, once these are installed?
Yes, so once they are installed, the company itself is put in contact with Cobb County because we're on Cobb County's core. And so Cobb uses a company called Diversified to do their testing. And then Diversified provides us with a report.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, that once these are installed, then Cobb County or the company that they hire will get with this contractor or this building, this apartment complex, and set up a yearly testing. So in the event, say, that some part of that mechanism fails throughout that year, and, we won't know, that company will come in and they'll test and say, okay, we installed this, but then now we've had a failure. So then it'll be the company's responsibility, or the apartment complex, to, I guess, replace that component that's failed?
So the building owner is the actual authorized holder jurisdiction. So the actual building owner is responsible for everything, not only the BDA, but everything else that belongs, let's say, to fire or lighting or anything like that, like permit holding. Mm-hmm. So technically, if there is some kind of an interference and we start tracking it down and it actually resides in that building, that's one of the reasons that we need to have this document, so we can go ahead and get either the Motorola service shop or Diversified and say, listen, what's going on out here? And then go ahead and enforce that, or let the building owner say, you have to fix this.
Okay, because I was just thinking that, God forbid, if this is installed and then they go in, our firefighters have to go into a certain floor, and then they hit this, a level where they cannot communicate, but there's supposed to be a BDA, a working BDA in that area. I'm just wondering who would be held responsible for, to make it, God forbid something was to tragically happen to one of our firemen, they cannot communicate.
Correct. It's not only on that structure, it could be in any structure. Actually, they could be going to a regular call, and we have a BDA not too far from where they're being located at for that scene, and let's say they have a rogue BDA without the parameters, and then it starts interfering with the radio system. So yes, this is very critical. The way that the BDAs are installed, we have to be very, very careful how they're installed and maintained on a yearly basis.
Okay, that's all I had. I yield back, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board of Commissioners, we have the approval of the minutes for tomorrow. Please be prepared to approve the minutes for April 11, 2023, the work session of April 10th, 2023, and the executive session meeting minutes of April 10th, 2023. Now we will have the acceptance of the financial report or budget for the month of March 2023 presented by Rosalind Miller, and she is not here, so we will continue to move on. She is? Oh. You're hiding from me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The report before you is financials report, and we're just asking the board to accept the financial report as stated.
And one question for you. So March 2023, we close out our budget, all of the the items that should be, yes or no?
No, yeah, we haven't gotten to that point
We
yet.
haven't gotten to that
No.
point,
We're-
okay.
We're close. though.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all
And
right.
we'll come before the board once, because we have to do some clean up of the financials, like carryover POs and stuff. So at that point, the board will know.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Ms. Miller before she returns back? Okay, thank you. We will have proclamations read tomorrow proclaiming the National Crime Victims' Right Week, and we will also have a proclamation proclaiming National Library Week in Douglas County, so looking forward to that. We will move on to county administrative business. Dr. Corbin, do you have anything?
None to report, Vice Chair.
Okay. Next item is business items, tab number 6, authorization for the chairman or vice chairman to execute a memorandum of agreement with West Virginia University for social work internship with juvenile programs pending final legal review. Ms. King, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. This is pretty easy. This is a memorandum of agreement with a college. I actually have a staff member who's getting her master's in social work, and they're allowing her to count work hours for her internships. It's just a really formal agreement to get signed off on.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions, Board of Commissioners? Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I appreciate the formality of it, because it does matter. Their time here, their internship should qualify as credit. And you have to put a formal arrangement in place to make sure it's accredited, it accomplishes what it's supposed to accomplish by way of what they need. And I guess my question is, have we done this before with other places? I mean, other times in past,
Not
in your
this
history?
particular situation. We've had a lot of college interns come in. It's very informal with their teachers and things for undergrad.
Yeah.
But we have not had this situation before.
Not with a master's level. All right, so to that point, no, thank you. And I guess to the broader, we've talked about tuition reimbursement. We talked about other workforce development or employee development, talent development. We talked about all types of incentives, both for interns or people. And I just wanted to know, now we can take this offline, Madam Vice Chair, but I'd like to know the status of that as a formality across the board, that here's opportunities, whether you're an intern, whether you're an existing employee that wants to go on and get higher education, because that still matters. I think that's for our culture. We've got to continue to grow. You've got to continue to learn. If we stagnate, then we'll keep doing the same old things we've been doing forever, but not knowing that society is leaving us behind. And so education is important, and I stand strongly behind learning. So this was just a point, duly noted. I like what I hear. We'll take it offline later. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. King. Tab number 7, authorization to accept and approve a quote from Johnson Controls for a file panel in the amount of $79,127.90 to be funded through 2022 capital funds, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Amons, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning, Vice Chair, Board of Commissioners, and the public. In late 2022, Mark Price presented to the board the need for the replacement of the fire panel here in the courthouse. And so we put out a solicitation for final panel replacement and peripherals. But during the pre-bid meeting, when the vendors came, it was discovered that it was going to be a lot more detailed involved in the actual kind of overhaul of the entire system, where we only actually needed the replacement of the fire panel. So I canceled that solicitation, and so I am requesting authorization to purchase a fire panel through Johnson's Control for $79,000, and that pricing is based upon a cooperative agreement. So we don't have to go out for bid.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Director Amons regarding the fire panel? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm following the process, and so we're not going to rebid. We're going to use, explain that again? What are we using
Yes.
in lieu of the bid process?
Okay, so the bid process was for the panel and peripherals, but it's been determined that we only need the panel. And so because we only need the panel, Johnson Controls provides the panel, and we can use a cooperative agreement to avoid the bidding process. And avoid is a strong word. So in lieu of the bidding process, we can purchase goods and services off of statewide contracts or cooperative agreements. And so we have taken that route. In addition, Johnson Controls was one of the vendors who came out for the pre-bid meeting as well, with other vendors. And so, and I believe, I'm not mistaken, is that current panel of Johnson Controls as well? Yes, the current panel is a Johnson Control as well.
I'm listening to the words, like you said, when you said avoid the bid process. Those are certain triggers to me, right?
Yes.
All right. So, all right, I like the in lieu of. When you talk about competition, and yet you could, through this process, you can direct it right to a vendor.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it sounds like it's allowed by law. Now I'm following this. Now I'm just listening. Just like, okay, so we can do it that way? Okay. I get it. I'm processing. I don't get to see what you got, so I've got to process. You got to give me a little room to process that you are, again, I get it. You have this state list, whatever this magical list is up there, of, I guess these are qualified firms that are on these state cooperatives, whatever that means. So that means that they're cooperating in such a way, whatever that means, that we can go to them directly. We can pick who we want to on that list if they're on that list. Is that accurate?
Yes. And so for further clarification also for the public, so what happens is with statewide contracts and then other cooperative agreements, the competition has already been had at that particular level. So for instance, with the fire panels, there was a bid that was put out via the cooperative agreement, and these are ones that we use all across the nation, other public entities. And so the competition is done, the contracting is done, the terms and conditions and everything is negotiated, and those cooperative agreements allow for public entities, instead of kind of repeating the process, we can go out and select because the competition has already been allowed at that particular level. It is legal. It happens on the federal level, the state level, and also the local level. And so there's a ton of information out there as far as cooperative agreements, and when we're in Georgia, I'll just stick with that. State of Georgia negotiates contracts on behalf of statewide colleges, statewide agencies, and then we are, as local governments, allowed to use the cooperative agreements. Now, we can go out and do our own bidding, but there's a whole plethora of contracts that are already negotiated. Lawn equipment, light bulbs is a category. UTVs and ATVs is a category. Supplies, your staples of the world is a category. Police cars are a category. Food is a category. And so I believe there are over 300 contracts at the statewide level. IT is a category. And so that competition has already been had. And so for us to save money and resources, because we do not have the depth that the state does or those cooperative agreements, we can go online, select a vendor. There's already been a public bid. They've already competed. And then we say thank you, but we do have to adhere to those terms and conditions that have already been negotiated.
No, I got it, and I appreciate that. That was very good. So here, this now we back up to the board that says, okay, this was good. So again, now we're talking about local. I'd love to hear public comment says, but what about local guys? When do they get to grow up? And I'm looking at that, and I can extend this like, okay, that's pretty much going to eliminate. If we stick with that as a position, that we go straight with these state cooperatives, that means everybody locally won't have a chance to grow, which is why you have less than 10% or 5% up in state for certain transportation contracts for all types of stuff. So this eliminates, or it holds back fair competition for the low guy. So the capitalists get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the little guy they can't even get in the game because I get efficiency and just, well, I ain't got time for the local bid process. I can just go over here and pick somebody on the list. So that's the board determined in Douglas if we agree with that. There's times that you do, but that fundamentally undermines the very thing of trying to create a small business ecosystem to allow the people who are living here, who wants to get in the game. Right, so we've got to balance both sides, the internal process and the external stakeholders. And so it's our job to reconcile. We're listening to you, but we also listen to our citizens. Right? Now, y'all hear how they're thinking, right? We got to reconcile this. Because this right here, I mean, I keep hearing this like, ooh. I mean, everything we talk about in the spots, we're trying to expand. We're trying to diversify. This is consolidating. It becomes the same old big guys. At least we were able to extend and create an atmosphere, at least smaller guys and newer people could get in. And they can coexist is my point. So it's a balance that says it can't be all the time one way. But there needs to be room to say, okay, at what time do we do this? I like what you said, we had to keep going, obviously. It's not accessories, I got it. But you brought up a good point. It was like, all right, guys, let's be aware of how we weigh in on this. Again, each one of us are independent and sovereign how we think. But as it relates to an overall, it's like, ooh, I don't want to get away from the very thing that we talk about from a procurement perspective that we're trying to open up and local. That matters. I get the internal, but like, okay, well, create that same thing locally. Create the same cooperative. That's why we came up with our pre-qualified list. And see, this is my thing. Wait a minute. So we created a pre-qualified list, but we don't want to use that. We want to use state. Oh, no, that's a problem. Because that undermines the very point that we're talking about, which is these guys locally, we pre-qualified them. We have our own process. So to your point, federal, state, local. This is when it gets good. Like, no, okay, I'm listening to what I'm listening to. I'm like, yeah, but. I know what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, but guys, listen to what she's saying now. And she's down her path. Like, all right, guys, know what she's saying now. It's getting away from the very things that we've been putting in place for 3 or 4 years. All right, that's all I have to say. You don't have to respond. We're good. I just want to make my statement. I have no problem with what she's bringing forth. Madam Vice Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Any other questions? Thank you,
Madam
Ms. Commissioner Alcaraz.
Ms. Amos, so what, I see this amount of $79,127.90. What were the other bids that we received before we went to look at this?
So there weren't any other bids, so I wasn't trying, so the role was not to underbid anybody. It was just a pre-bid meeting, but the estimates were about $300,000 that were just verbally kind of communicated. So there wasn't any cost submitted. This is not a cancellation of the bid in order to give it to Johnson Controls. It is just looking at the need and then the budgeting and what can we do now. And so right now, we can replace the panel and then it's on a cooperative agreement. So we don't start with cooperative agreements first. We're like, what is the need, and are we able to utilize a cooperative agreement? Because a lot of them do save us money, and we've saved money across the county using a cooperative agreement.
And this question would probably be better answered by Mr. Price. So if we did not use the same style of panel, Johnson Controls panel, we changed it out to a different panel from a different brand, would there be any additional cost in swapping out the two different panels?
Yes, sir. If we go with a different fire panel, then we would be required to change all the peripherals, which would add about $200,000 to the cost. We have a Simplex. It's an old Simplex. It was bought out by Johnson Controls. It is a proprietary system, so there's no other panel that we can replace it with but a Johnson Control panel. So we really have no choice, but we are saving the county money. The panel is failing. There's no doubt about that. The peripherals are okay. We can replace them on an as-need basis without compromising the safety of the building. So we didn't want to spend $300,000 or $300,000 plus to replace all the peripherals if they weren't needed immediately.
Oh, no, I completely understand. I just wanted you to say that so that our public understands as to why it would be smart to choose Johnson Controls, because if not, you'd have to change out all those peripherals. I just want to make sure our public understood that. And
Yes.
I yield back, Madam Vice Chair, is all I have.
Thank you. And Ms. Amons, to Commissioner Robinson's point, we can take this up in the Purchase and Oversight Committee in regards to how we can create local lists for items such as this, whether we do it, up to a purchasing threshold, or whether we create a list based on, the businesses that we have here so that there will be fair competition. But I agree with what you and Mr. Price have come up with. So we look forward to you bringing this to us tomorrow to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Amons, you have the next agenda item, which is approval to award a contract pursuant to solicitation 23-014 to Brightview Landscape Services Incorporated to provide additional monthly litter pickup services on 15 roadways in the amount of $5,476.80 per month, and spot check litter pickup at a cost of $92.50 per mile on 6 roadways. And this is to be funded through the Public Works DOT Maintenance Annual Budget, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Thank you so much. The Procurement Department posted a solicitation 23-014 on March the 9th, 2023 for countywide litter pickup. The bid closed on March the 30th, and 2 vendors submitted a bid. That was Brightview and Yellowscape. Brightview's bid was $5,476.86 per month, and Yellowstone was $16,519 per month. And so if the board so chooses, we would like to award the contract to Brightview in the dollar amount posted on the agenda.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, you have heard this business item. Are there any questions regarding this? Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Ms. Amos, which 15 roads, just so our public knows, which 15 roads were selected and how are they selected?
Okay, give me just a moment. I'll pull up the roads. The roads were provided to me by DOT, and the roadways are as follows: 92/166 joint section, Anawaki Road, Bright Star Road, Central Church Road, Chapel Hill Road, East County Line Road, Ephesus Road, Highway 166, Mount Vernon Road, Riverside Parkway, South Sweetwater Road, State Route 5, Stewart Mill Road, West County Line Road, and Yancey Road. And then the spot check is for Fairburn Road and State Route 92, Lee Road, Liberty Road, Maxim Road, Post Road, and Thornton Road. And again, those are provided to me by Public Works, DOT, and listed in the RFP.
Okay. All right, that's the only questions I have, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Amons, so when it comes to the spot checking, how will that be done? Because I noticed the unit price per mile for that is more than it is for the regular roads that are on the contract.
That will be determined by the DOT as far as just spot checking. I think those may be high-traffic roads. So, oh, here's Heath.
I was looking for you, and I didn't see you. So, hi.
Yeah, the spot checking will be on those roads. It'll be the charge additional mileage. And then when they stop, the mile, it's more important because it's more expensive per mile, because then if you do see trash, you gotta stop, set up, start picking up the trash, and you know, where the other case you're already in the line, you're moving down the route, you have everything there. Spot check is just to ensure that the trash is not building up, you know, they're doing it enough, frequently enough, and then if not, then they kind of got to call the crew, get them over there, clean it up. So it's just a lot of last minute stuff.
Okay, so for that convenience, they charge a little bit more to get out there.
Yes, ma'am. But
And-
we still save a lot than putting them on for a whole nother cycle for a different additional, you know, pickup. So,
Okay, got you. Have you worked with this company before?
yes.
And you were pleased with their services in
Yes,
regards to the
very
litter
pleased.
pickup? Okay. Because we have a lot of litter around the county, and we do get emails in regards to that, so.
I've noticed, I've got a few myself. Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. All right, so just want the public to be aware that we are addressing it, and continue to contact us as you see it, and we will hopefully pass this contract, and we'll get someone on it. Thank you so much. Any further questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Amons
Thank you.
and Director Heath. Number 9, approval of Landmark Consulting Task Order Number 2, Policies and Procedures Advisory Services for the review of county grant management policy in the amount of $8,000 to be funded through the department's existing budget, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related pending final legal review. Ms. Hobson, you have the floor.
Good morning. As the board knows, the solicitation 22-009 was awarded last year to Landmark Consulting for professional services for grant management. Task order number 1 was associated with the ARPA fund. This is task order number 2. Over the past year in this new role, I have worked very hard on our policy and procedures for grants in the county, taking priorities. The board wanted that policies align across departments. Also want to ensure we're, 100% in line with federal compliance regulations. So as I have worked on this for the past year, I just want another set of eyes just to review and make sure we're not missing anything.
Thank you, Board of Commissioners. Do you have any questions for Ms. Hobson? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so, no, this is, I appreciate what I'm listening to, because we're finally beginning to understand how things need to be aligned across the board. Right, I appreciate the fact that you bring on another set of eyes. Yes, that was the will of the board, which is like we want it countywide. Let's not mess up this money, this federal and state, by the way we've always done it. Not recognizing that our policies and procedures need to advance, just like the opportunities for financing have advanced. There's conditions, requirements, and expectation. And I appreciate the maturity that you're bringing to this area. We're starting with grants, I get it, but hopefully we'll get across the whole county, from HR to you name it, about county-wide consistency, maturity. This is key. And so I just wanted to highlight that point. I'm glad I know what Landmark can bring to the table. That's what we brought them forth. And hopefully they're giving you what you need. So what do you think about Landmark? I mean, you're part of us. I mean, are you comfortable with what you're working with?
Yes, sir. I've been very happy with Landmark and their help with the ARPA projects. I have no complaints at this time.
Okay. So scoping, as far as that, laying out how project schedules are done, I mean, it's a discipline. Do you think it's working?
Yes, I think we are in the beginning, of ARPA. We still have 3 more years to go, so we're getting there.
Okay. Have we been able to retrofit stuff that, I know they inherited some things that were just, it is what it is. They had to bring it into compliance. And then there's the new stuff that's coming along that will adhere to the new process because it started off right. Have we taken care of the past yet? Are we caught up, meaning all the projects that already started, we were spending money before they got there? And they're like, whoa, guys, y'all can't, whoa, this is how y'all doing federal grants? You tighten it up. Where do we stand on that, reconciling?
Commissioner Roberts, we have one more to go for the review of things that were done before Landmark.
One more. Very good. You got it done. Well done. Well done, Jill. Okay. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We're good. She's got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, since we already have you up here for grants, how important is it for those entities that the county gives money to or grants money to, that they follow the protocol, meaning that they give you updated reports, that they give you their audits, that they let you know how the funds were spent so that we can report that back? Can you just talk to that for a second? Because for those stakeholders and business entities that we do, give those monies to, how important is it that they get us back the information that we asked for and follow their MOU to the T?
It's very important. We're held by federal regulation to make sure we do this right. So us being proactive ahead of time, we've got a lot of new processes coming online with procurement and finance. We're going to start doing kickoff meetings at the beginning of every grant. We are going to have the infrastructure solid, and it's just taken a little bit more time than I thought it would, but that's because of the big ARPA fund has taken up so much of my time.
Okay. And so if you do not get what you need, Ms. Hobson, what will happen to that organization?
Well, I have a feeling that I probably drive people crazy to get what I need, but we won't use them, for subrecipients or fiscally manage any of their funding. I don't think we can put the county at risk for somebody else's negligence.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tab number 10, approval of change order number 1 in the amount of $15,992.75 on the contract with the Corbel Group, LLC for Stewart Mill Road at Reynolds Road Intersection Improvement Project to be funded from the 2016 SPOS funds as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Rana, welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me. Good morning, Madam Vice Chair and Board of Commissioners. Before you is a change order approval request for Stewart Mill at Reynolds Road Intersection Improvement Project. This project is in District 3, and the goal is to basically widen the intersection to accommodate excessive turning movement that's happening here, and also add sidewalk and other safety improvements for this intersection. This has been in construction for about 5 months now, and this is the first change order we have. This is because of the unsuitable soil conditions that were encountered during the excavation. We also got concurrence from the engineer of record on this situation, and we believe this is important or necessary to move this project forward, so we request the board to approve this change order number 1 with the Corbett Group, LLC.
Thank you. Any questions from the Board of Commissioners regarding this request? If none, we'll move on to tab number 11, approval of the supplemental agreement number 4 in the amount of $17,000 on the contract with Jacobs Engineering Group for the design services during construction of Stewart Mill Road at Reynolds Road Intersection Improvement Project to be funded from the 2016 SPOS funds as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Rana, you have this too?
Thank you. Yes, so this goes hand in hand with the previous item. Jacobs Engineering serves as our engineer of record on this project. Their previous supplemental agreement has expired, so we're requesting the board to approve this cost plus fixed fee agreement to be put in place so we can utilize them if needed. This again is a cost plus fixed fee contract, and we only reach out to them when we have uncertain conditions arise at the site, such as the first change order that came about us. So we request the board to approve this, as it's very important to have an engineer of record active on a construction project.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this request? If none, tab number 12, authorization to upgrade intersection control methods on Lithia Springs Senior Center driveway at Groover Lake Road to a flashing sign warning, Old Douglasville Road at Brownsville Road to a multi-way stop, Rock House Road at Rock Hill Parkway to a multi-way stop, and Mount Vernon Road at South Sweetwater to a traffic signal, as recommended by the Transportation Committee, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. So you're going to clear that up for us, right?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I have a brief presentation to share for these intersection control methods. So anytime we change any intersection control method, we come before the board to request approval. All of these improvements will be funded through our internal budget, so there is no financial ask, but just approval to upgrade these control methods. The four intersections that we're looking at is, the first one is Lithia Springs Senior Center Driveway at Grooville Lake Road, Old Douglasville Road at Brownsville Road intersection, Rock House Road at Rock Hill Parkway, and a traffic signal at Mount Vernon at South Sweetwater Road. The first one is the Senior Center in Lithia Springs. The way this driveway is oriented on Grooville Lake Road is that just to the right of this development, there's a high point of the road. So as the seniors pull out of this driveway to make a left turn on Grooville Lake Road, they have very limited side distance looking on the right. That is a safety risk, and upon our traffic engineering study, we found that the side distance for the given speed limit, posted speed limit, is not enough. Therefore, we're requesting this warning sign as a preventive measure to be put in place. That is a double looped warning mechanism that warns the senior citizens coming out of the driveway of any vehicle coming from behind the high point that they cannot see. That is the first one. The next one is a multi-way stop sign at Old Douglasville Road at Brownsville Road. This is currently used as a major minor stop control, which means Old Douglasville Road serves as a major road with no stop condition, and Brownsville Road or Stroud Parkway serves as a minor road with a stop control. Over the past few years, there has been significant residential development throughout Stroud Parkway in Cobb County and all the way in Paulding County, and that is causing influx of cars heading to this intersection. So the initial mechanism of this intersection of major and minor does not work anymore. When we looked at the traffic counts, the previously minor road, which is Brownsville Road, currently has double the volume of Old Douglasville Road. So that is causing excessive congestion and backlog or backup on these roads. Another thing we encountered was, because of this heavy congestion, there has been increase in crashes over the past 5 years, and the warrant of multi-way stop is actually met on the basis of safety due to the excessive accidents in the past few years at this intersection. So since the warrants are met and there's a real congestion and a safety issue, we request the board to approve a multi-way stop on this intersection. Next one is Rock House Road at Rock Hill Parkway. This is a subdivision. This is a subdivision with access on Rock House Road. The same issue applies here. There's very limited sight distance at this intersection. So what the residents are having to do is they have to cross the stop bar and almost be in the middle of the intersection to evaluate if there's any incoming car towards this intersection or not, and then make a turn. That is very unsafe turning movement, and out of precaution, we recommend that board approves a multi-way stop sign for this intersection. And of course, with each of these intersections, we've studied this posted speed limits, the crashes, and the side distances. In this case, the side distance was not enough to support the posted speed limit, and that's why this is a preventive measure that we can put in place to ensure safety. The last one is a traffic signal at Mount Vernon at South Sweetwater Road. This is actually just one part of a solution that I'll discuss in the next agenda item, but basically this intersection is very congested intersection with the stop control in place. Upon running the traffic counts, we evaluated that the signal warrants are met on this intersection, and it has been for a long time, so I believe signal warrant is long overdue on this intersection. We recommend that board approves this so we can fix this part of the problem on Mount Vernon and South Sweetwater. And there's just one more solution that I'll be presenting in the next agenda item to solve the gridlock in this intersection. But that is all I have for this item.
Board of Commissioners, if you're okay, I'll go into tab number 13, so while he's already explaining it. That's the approval to reclassify South Sweetwater Road from Mount Vernon Road to Lee Road as a collector road. Beechwood Drive from Mount Vernon Road to South Sweetwater Road as a local road, and Senior Road from Beechwood Drive to Skyview Drive as a local road as recommended by the Transportation Committee and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we received a lot of complaints from District 1 residents about a partial gridlock situation that we have at South Sweetwater at Mount Vernon intersection. So therefore, we have this reclassification request for 3 different roadways in this location. The red box that you see is where most of those complaints were from. The orange circle shows where the last agenda item proposes a traffic signal. But what is happening right now is due to the backup caused at the intersection for not having a traffic signal, the riders are cutting through the neighborhood onto Beechwood Road and Sinyard Road that I'll show in just the next slide. But you can see those as yellow lines on this map. And what's happening is these guys are trying to get on interchange, so they're usually traveling on a high speed, and they're crossing residential neighborhoods. And upon receiving those complaints, we could not put in place any traffic control or cut-through traffic control methods in place, like speed bumps or signage, preventing people from cutting through those neighborhoods because of the classification of these roads. So there are 4 roadway classifications. A freeway are the highways, I-20, I-75. Arterials are the roads that take you to the interchange, like Chapel Hill or Thornton Road. And then collectors basically connect the residents to those arterial roads, and then residential or local roads are the ones that serve your houses in subdivisions and basically connect to your driveways. So because this is classified as a collector, the neighborhood roads are classified as a collector, so we can't put in place traffic control methods, and that is why this reclassification is so important. So the first 2 that you see on the screen now are the yellow lines. These are residential roads serving a big number of houses around these roads, and these are currently classified as a collector road, and these are the roads that people are using to cut through at a high speed. The next slide shows another misclassification, which is the South Sweetwater Road. This road that you see in blue line is currently classified as a local road, whereas it serves a mix of mostly commercial but few residential, but the basic purpose of this road is to connect 2 major arterials. So this is serving as a collector, whereas it's currently classified as a local road. Now in this case, it would merely be a name change or changing it back to the right classification, versus on the last ones where we'll actually be putting in place some measures to prevent traffic from cutting through. But while we're fixing this situation, might as well do it the right way and do the whole thing. So we recommend that this currently labeled local road be reclassified as collector, because that is the purpose it's serving right now. So therefore, we request the board to reclassify South Sweetwater Road to a collector road, Beechwood Road, and Sinyard Road to local roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Rana? So Director Rana, let me make sure I understand this. We're doing this so that we can help better maintain safety and flow for the residents around the area.
That is correct, Madam Chair. We're correcting the traffic patterns, taking them away from residential houses and putting the heavy traffic where they belong.
Okay. So will they eventually get road speed bumps in that area, or this will just totally take that need away?
So the first step may be the total solution, but if it doesn't, the reclassification will allow us to go back in there and put the speed bumps or other control methods that are needed. But I believe once we have a signal and reclassified roadways, we would have solved about 80% of the problem.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next tab item is number 14, authorization to amend the Douglas County Code of Ordinance regarding Chapter 5, Article 11, Animal Control Advisory Board, Table 32123. Dr. Chinkowski, is she here? If not, we will keep this item tabled. Tab number 15, removal of a temporary employment agreement with former tax assessor employee Leanne Tyson to assist with the 2023 digest preparation for a term not to exceed 3 months at an hourly rate of $25 per hour, for a total of $12,000 to be funded through the department's existing budget, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Assessor Balfour, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. This request is to bring back one of our certified and qualified retired employee to assist with getting our digest prepared. We continue to be without certified staff. We currently have 2 vacancies with no qualified applicants. So in an effort to get the digest prepared, we are asking the board to approve Leanne to come back to help us with the digest.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion regarding around Director Balfour's request? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Director Balfour, good morning.
Good morning,
All right.
Commissioner Robinson.
Okay, so let me get this right. You know, I'm historically, I'm big on making sure that the digest is accurate, like our financial budget as a whole. And so over time, we've put in technology and personnel and whatever was needed to make that area as efficient as possible. Move away from, as I used to call before you got here, it was like we were on an abacus. And we used to try to count things in just the old school way. And I'm going to continue to highlight this so that it becomes part of our culture, becomes institutional. We have to wake up and recognize, guys, we've got to shift. I know this thing was, it's what we used to. 100 years long. I get it. We all grew up here this way. But it's like this thing, it's bigger than that. It's denser. It requires a little bit more to it. And so we bring talent in, just like migration policy, right? Those who were born here and those that migrate in for the greater good. We can go all day long with this. Y'all know this. I'm more intelligent than that. So here we are, and so now we've got this talent. So my question is, we gave you money. Now, why can't we attract the right people to fill these roles? That we got to hire somebody through an outsourcing at still a higher rate? What's the issue? Get at it.
And it's, we need to be, Douglas County is now considered a metro county. And we need to be competitive with metro counties. So we did get funding for 2 positions. However, we're still sourcing the staff from Metro Atlanta. So the only way we can attract certified qualified employees at this level is from the same pool, the Metro pool of certified qualified mass appraisers who are certified by the Department of Revenue. So it's either going to be a retired staff or someone currently employed to a county.
Are there any firms out there, like professional services that like accountants, like whatever, that we can just, it's probably the same thing as a retiree. They know our system, so it's the familiarity. But there's a space here that I'm sure if I looked hard enough, that you tell me there are enough of these big 5 firms that can come alongside of us, and that's going to cost us. I get it, but again, I know why you're here. So it's like, well, the board has determined how are we going to do this, guys? Because he's coming before us like, look now, I can't even hire people. You gave me money. You gave me people. I can't attract nobody. We can't attract Atlanta, but the people over on the other side, I guess to Carroll or Paulding, we're in between. This ain't the only area, but this is the prime area. Just like, okay, now if we're late on our digest, if we're delayed on this, don't look at me because, again, I need help. So I know you're asking for a true decision, but is this here what you need to get through this cycle? And what do we need to do during the budget cycle to fix this? Do we need to upgrade across the board to attract what you need? Because, again, you need to attract Division I players. I get it, but what's missing?
And you have hit the nail right on the head. And there are firms, and my next item is will be supplying also from a firm. So I'm looking at it from both angles. So we're going to get a retired, we're asking for a retired person to come back to help, and we're also looking at Tyler Technology Services, which would be item number 16. It's coming. And yes, going forward, we need to look at making our salaries more attractive across the board for an appraisal department that is in the market and competing against metro counties. We do have staff living in Douglas that works in Cobb and works in Fulton, but we can't attract them.
How about that, y'all? How about that? That's the reality. Right, it's competition. I get it, and I appreciate you bringing this forth, and I understand you got 2 items, and but it's one conversation. It's how we got to approach it from a decision-making. But Madam Vice Chair, he's answered my questions. I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Balfour? So we would go into tab number 16, approval of an appraisal services agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. to assist the assessor's office with analytical and technical support with completing the 2023 digest not to exceed $20,000 to be funded through the department's existing budget, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Balfour.
And this is just a follow-up from item number 15. We are also soliciting help from Tyler Technologies Services. They do supply, have a resource that supplies this service, and we are tapping into that resource so we can get a successful and completed digest in time as required by the Department of Revenue. Our statutory deadline is we must have notices out on or before July 1st.
Thank you. So, Mr. Balfour, in relation to what you brought before us, this just is a Band-Aid, correct?
That is correct, but
Okay.
it will get us through.
It will get us through so that we can get our digest approved so that the citizens can get everything that they need in time enough to get payment back to us. So when it comes to the type of talent that we do need in terms of tax assessor or tax assessor employees, what's one of the things that we can do in order to keep the talent we already have and then attract the talent that we need? Because let's just be honest, truth be told, your office and the sheriff's office and the tax commissioner's office are probably 3 of the most important offices in terms of making sure that the county can conduct business and conduct it safely. So you got to be straightforward with the board and with setting the expectations of those who are watching us now, who are the citizens, in regards to this. So the more that we know, the more that we can explain it to the citizens, and then we can prepare in the next budget cycle.
And thank you, Madam Chair. That is correct. I will always say it takes cash to care, and the appraisal department is responsible for bringing in at least 90% of the county's revenue. And we are a small department. We have less than 20 staff. And I think it is very important that our staff salaries are in the market with metro counties, because the fact is we're competing with staffing from metro counties, and it's a finite amount of certified appraisers. They're all trained and certified by the Department of Revenue. So we need to make ourselves competitive with metro counties, and it's a simple solution.
So in terms budget-wise, what are you thinking for the next budget cycle in order to get us in line with the other metro counties?
And yes, we will be looking at it, and I have looked at it, and my budget request was just to bring us into the market for 2020, the current budget, but there was a shortfall. So we'll look at it for the upcoming budget.
Thank you. No further questions for you, Mr. Balfour.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do appreciate the board. The board has in the past assisted us with salary increases, and I know that this department have been increased since I've been here. However, we need to be in the market. Thanks.
You're welcome. Tab number 17, approval of a contract with Oversight Systems, Inc. to provide oversight activity and monitor for the Douglas County Procurement Card Program in the amount of $48,750 through December 31st, 2023, to be funded through procurement's existing budget, and authorize the chairman and vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Amons.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Board, and the public. In late 2021, the BOC approved the transition or the allowance to bring forth the P-card system for Douglas County. In the year 2022, we rolled out the official program. We equipped employees through phase 1 and 2 with the P-card. And so this request here is for like the last phase, and it is considered to be the audit phase. And so Oversight is an organization that will provide AI auditing of the P-card. So as we know, we as individuals, we look at receipts, we say the receipts particularly match a particular charge, but what we don't know with our naked eye is if, unfortunately, someone has, let's say, adjusted the actual receipt to match the charge. And so what I mean by that is AI technology will actually have the ability behind the scenes to know that, yes, the charge was valid and the charge was invalid. It will be able to give detailed itemization of all receipts and allow us to know really those outliers for the charge. So just a high level, Oversight mitigates P-card risk by leveraging their analytics. They will reduce P-card policy violations. What we mean by that is the company will take our policies, line that up from a computer auditing perspective, and then when there is an outlier for a card, we will be notified. And some of this is in real time versus at the end of a cycle for a P-card. And then lastly, they will maximize cost savings and rebates. So one of the things that we didn't talk a lot about is depending on the P-card spend, this particular contract with Bank of America does allow for rebates that the county would receive based upon the spend of the card. And that is part of the overall contract agreement because just to remind everyone, the board and the public, is the Bank of America program that we're using is one that was negotiated with the state. And so we are utilizing that program, and the state contract does allow for rebates, even at the local level. So more specifically, Oversight will look at suspicious keywords when someone is actually loading up their receipts. Their program looks for suspicious keywords, fraud risk, misuse, inappropriate venue, because we do have, and they will highlight that, and I'll use as an example, P-card policy does not allow for gas purchases, overall, a gas purchase. However, if you are traveling on business and you have a rental car and you use the P-card for gas, then we would just be alerted to look to see if that is a valid charge. So that's what we mean by inappropriate venues. Expense type threshold. We all have a single transaction limit here in the county at the particular level. Those levels can be changed according to a business need. However, we will still receive a notification. P-card purchase outliers. Were purchases made at midnight? If they were, was it in response to an emergency or not? We would receive notification. And then split transactions. So if you have a single transaction limit of $1,500 and yet you're making a purchase, sometimes those are valid. For instance, if you have a registration to a conference registration is $600, you want to take 5 employees, and your card looks like it's been charged 5 times for $600. Again, it is a valid business expense, but this particular programming will receive, someone will receive notification to say, hey, was this particularly valid? And so also, I just want to add for the board and the public, I've used this system as a P-card administrator in my previous employment. I did receive notifications on a monthly basis from the state or the Department of Administrative Services saying, please provide additional information from their own auditing group. And even if they were valid, we sent the receipt. If we violated something, they will let us know. We use it as a learning process, and we move forward. And so I have utilized the services of this company before, and if it is the wish of the board, I would like to proceed with a contract for us here at the local level.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding this request? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Good morning. Again, so a couple months ago, you brought forth, maybe end of the year or beginning of the year, a presentation similar about some AI. Is this the same firm or is that a different one? I'm just trying to reconcile this type of tool.
Yes, it is the same firm.
It is the same firm?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to reconcile. I didn't remember the name. So then I'm good then. I'm good. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Ms. Amons, with this oversight systems, will they go back and look at when the P cards started, or will it just start effective as when we hire them from that point going forward, or will they go back and audit the previous purchases?
I think that's a decision that we can make internally. I do know that I did provide them with cost data previously for them to kind of look at our spend and to help come up with a model as far as pricing is concerned. But for the auditing services, I can receive clarification. Is it a going forward basis or from the beginning?
Okay, that's the only question I had. I yield back, Vice Chair.
Thank you. That's a good question, because if we have, one, we need the data, right?
Yes.
So that we can actually, year after year, match up where we're spending, who's spending what departments. It'll also help the department heads
Yes.
with their budgeting, right?
Yes.
We receive that. But number two, so who determines the buzzwords? Is there already a database for the AI that determines those buzzwords, or do we do it as a county?
It's a combination of both. Because they have the expertise and they've done this for governments as well as large companies around in the U.S., I believe the Amazon and the Googles of the world, they have the expertise to know which buzzwords to use based upon their experience. So they are really great at doing that. But if we wanted to add additional buzzwords, yes, we can. And so they can model it after what we need and also using their experience.
And have you decided, how will you train the staff that is given P cards on how to properly use them, ensuring that documentation, whether it's receipts or whatever it is that you require of them, and then also that this software is in place? Because I think, we're in the people business, right? So people do strange stuff at times, not understanding that there is a system that is watching them. So how will you explain that to the staff? I want you to explain that to the staff so that we don't have people who are,
Forgetful.
Exactly.
Okay.
I don't want to say fraud, but I do want to say, look, let's just keep it above board.
Yes.
Don't misuse the P cards.
Absolutely. So initially, everyone was required and did attend training when we first rolled out the program. And it's been my experience that every year, and that anniversary, date that we decide, not an anniversary date of when you receive the card, but just a general anniversary date for the county, I would resend out the policy, highlight that information, and have everyone re-sign the forms that they were supposed to complete initially, and then also discuss, some of the trappings and codify the difference between misuse and fraud and how we move forward, but also on a more positive note, how the P-card can help your department facilitate business in a quicker way. I mean, a lot of times when people talk about the P card, and we hear it across the nation. It's a lot of negativity, but there's also a lot of positive and aspects to having another form to facilitate business on behalf of the county. And I'll take, for instance, again, like a registration to a conference. I mean, the amount of time it takes to fill out the paperwork, get a requisition, send the people a check. Sometimes the check is late. We send it to the wrong address. We don't know who's going, when actually we can just swipe the card, we pay for it, and the charge is complete. So it can be a good tool to use when used properly. And then if we can move more business to the P card, again, for official county business, we may be able to get a rebate depending on the spend. And so, and lastly, it's a great insight with the audit tool and what we have to even show and categorize where we're spending our dollars. It's not just, supplies. Well, where are those supplies? What are we categorizing those supplies? Is it office supplies? Is it paper? Is it pens? A supply can be, are they drapes? Someone may put that under drapes because we don't have necessarily a furniture category. And so this really is a great tool for information, or those of us who really like to look at the data, right, and to see where we're spending the money. Because as we know, when we use a P card, we actually allocate, and we put them, we have to allocate the funds to our particular budget in our budget line item. And so again, another way of saying, where are we actually spending the funds? And this tool allows us to categorically know where we're actually spending it, because the P card has MCC codes, which is your descriptions. So we'll know flight, we will know hotel, we will know registration versus maybe just a general travel line. So I do love, in theory, the P card program, just making sure that everyone uses it appropriately, and when there are errors, we stop them, we correct them, and we move forward.
Is there a way to capture if a director gives an employee the P card and they use it inappropriately?
Yes. So, yes and no. There isn't a way. First, we did allow initially the ability for department heads to give someone their card, and they will sign out the card and use the card, okay? We initially said that. And then we said, well, maybe it will be best, because everybody was nervous, that we just allow the employee to have a card, and then that kind of takes that risk away from it. But as we know, with department heads and we have assistants, there's just a lot of moving parts. And so a lot of times you may not know that a card has been used inappropriately until once the statement has closed. One of the things I did try to encourage is, depending on the amount of volume you have for the P card, is to sit down maybe every Friday and reconcile. We have a lot of individuals or department assistants who proxy the cards for the department head. So they would take the receipts. And as a leader, sometimes we just don't have that time and bandwidth to sit down and make a copy of a receipt. And so we hand that trust over to our assistant. And then the assistants will go ahead proxy. And the proxies do have to sign a form as well, saying that everything that they load in would be it will be done in line with the business, okay? Because we have a lot of trust. It's a two-way trust. And so maybe at the end of the month, someone will sit down and actually take a look at those particular charges. But I encourage everyone to do that on a weekly basis. But going forward, then we may have to do more of just putting it on a person's calendar to say, hey, it's the 7th, stop and look at your statement. What I do like about Bank of America is that you do have the ability to look at your charges before the official statement hits. So I traveled recently, I came back, and I was able to load up some receipts because they had posted. So it's just like your personal credit card. Then the next week, some more charges showed up, just depending on the merchant and when they do post. So it's a trust, and so we do proxy, but I will encourage department heads that if they do lend out their card, that they either, one, get a general department card that people will sign out, or you trust the employee to have a card in their name.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Amons regarding this? If not, we will, Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, but I like to listen to the conversation and back and forth. So, there was an audit that was called forth recently by Dr. Ramona Jackson-Jones, our chair at the time, regarding purchasing. What's the status? Do we get a status on that? Do you know anything about this? And again, this is all part of the same thing. Can you, and if you can't do this now, like at least have the county administrator give us a briefing or someone on use to date? Can you answer that question?
So if I understand your question correctly, number one, there was the call for a purchasing audit, and is that overall purchasing? Because I wasn't aware of, on
Then
the
leave it
audit
there.
side.
Then if you're not aware,
Okay.
County Administrator, we need to find up and follow up on that, please. If you're not aware, you can't answer this. For an audit, can we find out, sir? Can you find the status out for us and let us know as a board if any action was taken internally?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what your question is?
Absolutely. Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones called for an audit about a month or so ago of purchasing cards. And there was an email that was sent out. My question is, was there any activity, response to that? And we'd like to get an update on what that was. I'm trying to figure out, was that the trigger for this oversight, even though she's brought this up in times past, as I made my opening statement. My question is there anything outstanding? Can you just let us know?
Absolutely. So part of this acquisition of software, the request is a part of that process.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, just let me know. You're fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Vice Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll go on to tab number 18, the approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Villa Rica resolving SDS, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. In concert with that, tab number 19 is also the approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Villa Rica resolving loss, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents. Attorney Coleman, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, these two agreements represent the completion of the process of renegotiating the loss in SDS. There was both SDS and loss were covered in the same agreement, but Villa Rica preferred to have it split out so that the two are separate, but they are the same provisions that are in the unified agreement. And they basically provide for the percentages that were negotiated with respect to lost, and extends the time frame for the SDS, but the agreement is substantially the same as what was there previously. So I think special counsel who we engage with these matters reports that they are in good condition. Based upon that, we recommend moving forward.
Thank you. Any questions, Board of Commissioners, for Attorney Coleman? Okay. We'll move on to tab number 20, consideration of a memorandum of understanding, an IGA with Foxhall Farms, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. And that is Chris Pumphrey, our Development Authority Director.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair and Board of Commissioners. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
First and foremost, I want to apologize for not being able to sit down with you all and just walk through this item with you. Greatly apologize for not being able to do that. If you will, though, I would like to just explain overview of kind of what it is, and then answer any questions that you might have. So back in December, the board approved a resolution that allowed for some modifications to the intergovernmental agreement for Foxhall. And so that resolution authorized us to then kind of go in and make those changes. So we spent the last, I says, 4 months now working through that in conjunction with the lender who is providing the traditional financing for the phase 1 of this project. So if you recall then, we broke it up into 2 phases, one that would allow for 15,000 square feet of conference center space to be added onto the existing lodge, an additional 48 villas to be built on property, and a 60 or so room boutique hotel that would be built. That in essence would be built in order to kind of get demand going, to meet the current demand, and then in a phase 2, they would still proceed with the Westin Hotel. So we spent a lot of time kind of working through the technicalities of that. The original agreement called for bond financing. It called for the whole project as one. And so we had to break those pieces up. We had to break up how pilot payments were applied to financing. So we had to break all those things up. So we did that, and then furthermore, we worked on kind of putting some enforcement into the project. So by breaking it up into phases, we all know that this project we've been working on for several years was all envisioned for the Westin Hotel and Conference Center, plus the villas and these components. So what we said is we don't want to just provide that same level of incentive if they only do phase one, right? It doesn't really meet the intent of what the public called for, was this broader project. So we, in essence, put some enforcement measures in there. And so that's what the memorandum of agreement is. It basically is saying, we're committed to doing this for phase one and phase two, and you're committed to making these investments into phase one and phase two. Is really what we have in every tax incentives agreement. Like, there's an obligation of the entity who's receiving the incentive to perform, and if they don't, you're subject to certain clawbacks. So it's a similar situation, whereas this one's really tied to physical assets going vertical. So what we said is by December 31st of 2028, if you do not have the financing in place for the Westin Hotel or a similar branded hotel, then this 30-year hotel motel tax incentive and this 15-year property tax incentive are then pulled back. We retract those. So what we then are doing is making the property tax abatement go from 15 years to 10 years. At this point, you're halfway through it. And then the hotel motel tax arrangement goes from 30 years, I believe, to 15 or 18. And I forget which one exactly it is, but it's one of those two. 15 or 18 years, and so it's not giving the full-on incentive. So we worked through that. We worked with their lender to make sure that we weren't doing anything that was going to kill the project, but at the same time, wanted to make sure that we were providing something that said, look, this is what the commission intended to incentivize. We don't want to just provide it blanket for something that doesn't meet what was called out for. We also put in a couple of additional kind of clarifications. So to my point about a Westin Hotel or similar brand, right? We don't just want, a 200-room Holiday Inn to be built, right? So what we put in there was a qualification to say that it has to be a minimum of a 4-star hotel rated property that would be built, not just any type of hotel. We changed just some technical terms as it relates to pilot payments. We defined the phases, as I mentioned, and then put in kind of the reduction of the incentive. So we spent a lot of time kind of working through that. We worked closely with Attorney Coleman and Sherman Golden as well, and just making sure that all the legal aspects of it. And then our attorney also debriefed Interim Administrator Corbin on this as well, just making sure he understood kind of what the basics of this was. So that is the totality of what we've done. We're not coming to ask for anything additional, but we're just kind of putting the technical bones around what you all approved in December.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for Director Pumphrey? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
No, thank you for that. And I appreciate your call this morning. Sheriff of Economic Development, I would have wanted a little bit more courtesy for something like this.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I say that this thing has been in existence since I've been in office. And I've watched this evolve over time. And it's a great case study that I'll speak to as I begin to teach about government and how what we support, how we bring things forth. I mean, this is very educational. I've watched this evolve. Like, okay, now why is this one treated with such versus everything else? And I get how there's a blending, a blurred line between that which we're familiar with and that which we're not. And we've coddled this project for quite some time. And I get it. I get the spirit. I get the vision. And I'm fine watching it evolve, because at some point, we're doing our part. As I said, the other side, there's got to be something on the other side of the equation, the equal sign. They've got to do their part. This was a very rich deal to begin with. This framework was just all hotel motel tax, all property taxes for 30 years. That's a generation, the life of a mortgage. But I get it. It's supposed to have been a catalyst back then, a catalyst for our economic development. That's what that was, supposed to be that. Now, since then, we've had other game changers. Right, so this makes me think, I get it, we're holding on to this, like we're waiting, we're counting, we're rooting, and everything else is moving around it. Everything else has got its own funding. everything else. I always say, "Look, where's Arthur?" I mean, that was my joke about, like, where's Arthur Blank in this? I mean, I get you trying to, but to pull this off, I mean, the whole premise was when we proved this is how we got the pilot program. That was my deal I cut. For my vote, right, you're gonna do an economic development in each commission district. That was my condition. Y'all made me sign it. I got $10 million SPLOS, all in District 2. This was that deal. There was that masterful guy. They needed that vote that bad. I cut the most masterful deal in my entire career. Got the $10 million for the SPLOS, all the economic development in each commission district. No more 10-year. The pilot programs, everything we do now is based on that, like, okay, we're gonna put a policy in place for 10 years. That's how important this deal is. That's why I keep entertaining, like, this is interesting, watch this thing evolve. And so now I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm cool, I get it, no problem. So we're changing the flag, now we're down to a boutique. I get it. I get it. We had 30-year marketing on this thing. It was, woo. That's great that you could say it, but you gotta be able to pull it off. And there's a graciousness. I mean, we've voted 5-0 down, 5-0 up, 3-2, 4-1. This thing has been through a lot of iterations on different things. I get it. I recognize we have a new leader in that area, so I tend to, as we always do, home rule and how things flow. But just for the record, I'm like, okay, so where are we at now? Recognize I just found out this morning. So I'm like, okay, what are we doing now? So you got to give me a little room to get my mind back around, okay, what are we doing this time? I get it. I'm glad that we finally are getting to a point where, right, guys, you got to put consequences in actions. I get it, that you're building in. It can't just be about the economic that we want to attract them. Don't sell yourself short. Look, man, bring it. You're giving taxpayer dollars. It's like, okay, you can't, and I've heard this, so I get to say it now. We were so wanting to attract people to the county that we were willing to give a thing away. And it was like, guys, I mean, I get it to get them to attract us, but do you know your value? Land is land is land. It's the land that's the value. And I get it, but we created this, I mean, you created this in such a way like, woo. And I tried my best along the way, like all the way to the end, like, look, you gotta get your own letter of intent. So we created the atmosphere in this thing. So one more time, I had to say what I had to say. You're saying we ain't got to add no more to it. There's no more money. You put some controls in place. Now I've got to talk to my county administrator after this because I'm usually involved in these things, but I'm real paused on this right now because what are we doing? This should have been more courtesy as much as we invested in this thing. That like, wow, come on, guys, y'all want me to help with this, but I'm not even in the room. That's a challenge for me. So you're good, Chris. I get it. I got to think through what I just heard. These are big deals. I had to say this for the public. This ain't like your normal portfolio. You come in here, you roll it. You roll that guy. But this right here is not the same. And so for that, I'm like, okay, let's think through this one, but no, not let us. Let me think about it. My peers will do what they do, respectfully. So I said what I had to say. Those are my comments. I get what he's asking. I'll take offline what I need to know. Madam Vice Chair, I yield.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. Chris, also, I appreciate the phone call this morning. Again, as we discussed, it was late at the hour when I actually seen the email and how long, when you open up some of those files, there was a lot to read.
Understood.
Being the new commissioner of that district, and understand, I appreciate the explanation you just gave, and of course you gave it also this morning. But as I told you, just such short notice of that, and then two, there's still a lot, as Commissioner Robinson mentioned, there was a lot that went on with Foxhall. And, I myself, personally, I told you that this morning, I would like time to wrap my head around that and dig into that to get a true understanding, especially if there's something I'm going to sign my name to as big as that project.
Sure.
I need some little bit of time to process that and to read through all those. And I appreciate Attorney Coleman last night speaking with me as well. But I have to agree with my peer that, it was come to us kind of quick, and that's, and I understand. Like I said, it's a big project. You got to make sure you have everything tightened up. I appreciate that. because I agree 100%. We should not just allow someone just to be able to do whatever. If they agree, if they get into this agreement with us, then they should go by certain guidelines. But I too, I feel like I'm going to need some time, to, process this one, look into it, and get with my peers to get some explanations in everything that we're asking for and how this transpired.
Yeah, we completely understand, and, as our normal, we have an ordinance that kind of defines how our other incentives are clawed back, but for this is very different, and so we didn't have that. But first and foremost, completely understand and respect what you all are saying about timing, completely understand that. But just to kind of further explain those details is, yes, it is something very new and different, but we just knew as a board, that there's no way we can just say, take it all, and then we look back, 5 years from now, and we're much further than where we are today. So we wanted to make sure we put those controls in.
Yeah, I would just have to say, it's not going to affect anything if we table this to the next meeting, will it?
Yeah, I spoke with them this morning, and we'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Vice Chair, I'd like to table this until our next meeting.
So we can table this to a date certain, Clerk Watson?
Yes, the next meeting would be May 3rd.
So this item will be tabled until May 3rd, Director Pumphrey. I do have a question for you. Why the 2028 date? Like how, at the 2028 mark, that will be how many years for this incentive?
It would be 5 years in.
5 years in?
Yeah, and we were just trying to give time we know kind of where the current market conditions are, especially from the bond market, because that's how that hotel component is being funded. It's just in a rye. And so just trying to give that time to settle, and assuming just a 5-year period would be plenty. And then once you add the 5 years on to kind of where we started, we're really longer than 5 years, or more like 15. So we were just trying to find the right date. There's not really a science to it, but it was more of an art. We were just trying to figure out that date and that time frame.
Thank you for that. So we will take this offline, and we will see you on May 2nd.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is tab number 21, and I will read 21 and 22 together since Director Worthington is coming forth to explain them. So tab number 21 says authorization to amend the memorandum of understanding between Douglas County Board of Commissioners and the Georgia Department of Driver Services. Amend the scope of work between the two parties and make a payment to the state of Georgia in the amount of $300,000 to cover a shift in scope, including curb, gutter, and utilities to be funded from the 2023 capital funds, and then authorize the chairman and vice chairman to sign all related documents necessary to transfer the property over to the state of Georgia. And then tab number 22, approval and acceptance of a deductive change order in the amount of $236,851.56 from F.H. Paskin in regards to the driver services project, and authorize the chairman or vice chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Director Worthington, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. First off, I apologize for the complexity of reading that. So it looks like a lot, but it's really, I'm just trying to accomplish one thing here. So as we've kind of gotten to the end of this project with DDS, and I'll refer to the state and DDS collectively because they're together in this. So the state will actually own the building, DDS will occupy it. So it's kind of a collaborative mix of folks. So, but basically, as we've gotten to the end of this, our original scope and our original memorandum of understanding expressed that we had to do certain things. And some of those things, as we've gotten to the end, the timing of it just don't work out. Like for the utilities, for example, say Atlanta Gas Line, they will not run the gas line until the building is in place, but the state's building the building and not us. So in order to fulfill our obligations between that and also the curb and gutter was kind of a split in half where we were going to do a portion of it and the state was going to do a portion of it. Again, the timing where you don't have joints throughout the property and you just have one continuous curb and gutter, it made more sense to do it all at once. So I've been in meetings with the state, DDS, their design team, their contractor, our contractor. So we've been going over this for several weeks trying to get this transition to be kind of seamless. And this is what we've came up with. So basically, what we will look to do is to amend the contract and amend the memorandum of understanding and the scope of work to where we pull those, the utilities and the curb and gutter out of the contract of our existing contractor that's working for the county, and we're going to pass those over to the state and their contractor, but we're going to get a deductive change order from our contractor, which is detailed in item 22 there for $236,851. Turn around and make a payment to the state or to GISFIC or DDS. I'm not sure which one it's actually going to. I haven't got an answer from them yet because there's a little confusion on who it'll go to. But we'll make a payment for $300,000 to them on that to cover all of this. Also, we're looking for approval of any of the transfer documents. When we're finished with the project, we will have to transfer the property to the state, which will be a survey or boundary deeds and things. We don't want any time to elapse in between there. So once the project's done, we want their contractor to be able to pick up immediately and start working. So if there's rain or something like that, we don't incur additional cost. If you're looking at the 236 and the 300,000, and it looks like we're kind of upside down in this, we're not. Part of the agreement, the original MOU included that if there was a stipulation in there, if the state spent over $3.2 million, the county would kick in an additional funding, and that amount was not to exceed $170,000, or 5% of their cost. Well, they're looking to be at probably in the $4.5 million range, so we'll have to kick in that 170 amount. That 170 amount is all included in this 300. So when you look at all of those numbers together, and I apologize, I know this is very confusing because there's a lot of working parts here, but the original contract that we signed was for $1,720,487, and then you add the $170,000 on top of that we're already obligated to do, and that was $1,890,487. And by doing everything I'm requesting now, our total cost will be $1,880,024.32, giving us a final number of $10,462 under budget. So it's pennies on the dollar here, but I like to say it, we're under budget. So so that's the request there. I know that's a lot of moving parts, but that's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Worthington?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
You have the floor, Commissioner Alcaraz.
James, you're speaking my language. I love anything that comes in under budget. But just so that the public knows, the reason for this change is because when you're switching from one contractor to the next, there has to be some sort of a stopping point. Correct?
That's correct. And so whoever the general contractor is at the time, they're responsible for the site. And that can be erosion control, liability, damages, anything like that. You don't want to have an overlap of general contractors. So we're trying to get to an end date for the general contractor that works for the county, which is FH Passion, and a start date for the state's contractor, who is Caliber One Construction. We want those dates to be end at midnight one day and start at 12:01 the next. So there's no gap of coverage and no overlap of coverage.
So basically, it's just going to be made, it'll help us make this change seamless, and also it removes us in regards to liability of the project.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Vice Chair. I yield.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so once we do this, what are we looking at in terms of dates, in terms of opening the driver services? That's no longer under our control. It's under the state's control at that point.
That's correct. So for our end, we're looking at probably about 2 weeks worth of remaining work, and then our portion will be complete. Now, there may be a little time in there on the documentation because we'll have to have surveyors come in at that point, verify that we did everything so we can prove to the state, not saying that's bad, that's just common practice. You want to say, yes, we have fulfilled our obligations. And then at that point, the state contract picks up. The state contractor had a stipulation in their contract, I believe it was 270 days of construction, so that would be 9 months of construction. So that's going to put you right at the early part of '24, so probably January or February before it is 100% complete.
Thank you. And my last question, so 1.8, but we committed 1.7, so how'd you get, we came in 10,000 under?
Oh, so we committed to the 170 in the beginning. It was just, it wasn't funded.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a stipulation only.
Okay.
But we were committed to it in the memorandum of understanding.
Okay, gotcha.
So yes, good point.
All right. Thank you for that. Any other questions regarding this matter? If none, we will move to our next agenda item, which is the approval of expenses, which we will do on tomorrow. Any discussion items, Board of Commissioners, that you would like to bring up? If none, I will ask council, do we need to move into executive session?
Madam Chair, we do need executive session for personnel matter.
So, Board of Commissioners, our Attorney Coleman has asked that we move into executive session for personnel matters. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So I have a motion, I will second it, that we move into executive session at this time. So all those in favor of moving into, is there any discussion? Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It was, you know, again, every now and then, public comment, they hit on something. And I do have an issue with the HR process that occurred over the weekend. Yeah, you're right. Why is a part-time job description up? Everything is full-time that's come along. I get it. I get it. And this is our part. I'm right. There's procedures, there's process that should be in play. That it causes confusion, and I get it. So again, if I'm looking for a full-time, I would expect it would flow as well. So I'm with you. I appreciate you bringing it out, but I was already aware. I'm like, what's going on? It's attention to detail. I get it on things that matter. But I had to acknowledge that. I did address, appreciate you looking out for that, because I had the same thought about our HR process. Like, come on. And hopefully we can get that back on track and resolved in short order. So thank you for that, and I yield, Madam Vice Chair. I'll let it go.
Thank you. So now that discussion has taken place, I will ask all in favor of moving into executive session for personnel matters, please state so by raising your right hand. Aye. It's unanimous and the motion carries. And for those who are watching online, we will be in executive session and we will return momentarily. Thank you. Thank you, staff, and to the citizens of Douglas County. We have returned from executive session. Again, I just want to reiterate that tomorrow, our Board of Commissioners voting session will begin at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning as opposed to our evening session. So again, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., the Board of Commissioners will be here to conduct our voting session. Is there any further discussion items to come before the board? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor. No? Okay. If there's nothing else to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned.